and welcome back. Today I wanted to show you how far I've gotten with my journal making this month. I decided I wanted to use this beautiful fabric from a house of books that I got in their ephemera pack. And I'm going to be using some of the ephemera too, but I'm kind of basing the journal on this particular piece of fabric because I just think the colors are so pretty and I love these big flowers, and it almost has kind of a fall theme to it. I think maybe it's just the navies and kind of like the darker pinks. It kind of reminds me of just kind of moving into fall. So I think this journal is going to kind of have some of those pieces in it, kind of a fall theme type things. I haven't quite decided what pages I'm going to be putting in yet, and that's going to kind of be my next step. But I thought in today's video, I'd just sort of show you some tips on covering your hardcover journal if you have a really pretty piece of fabric that you want to use to do that. And I've been kind of practicing covering journals for maybe about a year now. And it's so funny. I never thought I would ever do anything like that. I used to see other people do it and think, oh, they're so crafty. You know, I'd never be able to do anything like that. It's so hard. It's actually very easy. And I've gotten help from multiple different YouTube videos. People have different techniques that are really helpful. So it's nice to go through different YouTube videos and kind of see what works for some people and what doesn't, and then kind of try things on your own. And then you kind of sort of make your own way through it and kind of figure out what works best for you. So today I just thought I'd kind of show you the journal that I created, the journal cover I created, and then just give you some tips just to kind of help you through if you want to cover your own journal. So like I mentioned, I'm using this really pretty fabric from a house of books, and I wanted to make kind of a thicker journal. So I had this old Reader's Digest book. The Reader's Digest used to have books a long time ago that were like compilations of different stories and put into these really pretty hardcover books. And sometimes I will leave the book uncovered because the pattern on the front is really pretty. In this case, the pattern was not very pretty, but I had the book and I wanted to use the cover for it. But it was nice because I didn't have to create a spine. It already had a pretty nice spine that was all intact and easy to work with. And so the only thing I wanted to do was just remove the pages and then cover the actual book cover. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut to some previous film that I made with a voiceover, because it's kind of hard to film and do it at the same time because I really need to kind of concentrate. So I filmed it and then I'll do a voiceover and explain everything. So I'll kind of show you how I kind of prepped the cover ahead of time. But basically, it involves using gesso and just covering the whole front of the book. But I'll explain that in a second. But what you want to do is kind of when you lay down your fabric for your book, you want to kind of figure out what part of the pattern, like if the fabric has lots of different patterns on it, like this one does. I mean, it has a main pattern, but then it's kind of has stripes, and it has like a dark navy area and this floral area here. You want to figure out where on your book cover you want the things to show. So in my case, I wanted, and this fabric was huge, and I cut it down. But what I wanted was to have the main flowers kind of show up on the front, and then everything else go. Like the lighter area show up on the back. So what I wanted to do first, or what you want to make sure you do, is if you have a patterned hardcover book. Let me show you an example. So this is an example this is a Reader's Digest hardcover book that actually had the cover has been taken apart. But you can see it has a pretty bright pattern on the front of it. You want to be careful if you have lighter fabric, or fabric that has lighter parts in it, like this one has a kind of an off-white area. You want to make sure that you're covering your book with some kind of either paper or gesso, which is basically white paint, to cover up the pattern, because otherwise it's going to show through. And I know this because I've made this mistake multiple times and have had to remove fabric from a book, and I ripped the book apart, and so it didn't turn out. So you have to remember to put gesso. Even if you think it might not show through, it usually will. So unless your fabric is really dark, you want to just make sure that you have that coat of gesso over the top. So I'm going to go ahead and cut to my gesso, and you can see what it looks like. So you can see I covered the front of the book with white gesso paint, and I actually ended up adding more to the back of it too, just to cover up the whole pattern. And any type of gesso would work. I have this stuff from Faber-Castell. And I also, on the inside, I reinforced the spine by using this Tyvek paper. Okay, so when you want to lay down your fabric, you want to make sure that you're putting the pattern where you want it to go. So you want to kind of lay everything down, and then you want to flip the book. You want to kind of like put the pattern like on the front of the book and then kind of flip the book over so you get everything where you want it to go. And I like to use, I have this, this is in my like kind of journal making area. You can see I've got all my House of Books ephemera ready to go for the new month. But I have this glass mat here that's really handy because it has these grid lines on it. It's really nice because you can line up fabric along the grid lines and make sure that it's straight. So then when you have a pattern that you're putting on the front of the book, the pattern is going to be straight when you glue it down. So just another tip too, when you are using fabric, to cover your journals, you want to make sure when you're cutting the fabric, you have some scissors that are just for fabric. So don't use the same scissors that you use to cut paper or cardboard or anything like that. You want to have just plain fabric scissors, and you'll definitely see a difference if you just have scissors set aside for fabric, because it'll cut beautifully, and you won't get jagged edges and everything. You can get a nice straight line when you cut the fabric. So I always just keep these scissors in my fabric bin with the rest of my fabric, so that way nobody accidentally uses them, and I always know where they are. Another thing that's really helpful to have too, as you're gluing down the fabric on the front of the journal, is bone folder. So there's all different kinds. This is a Martha Stewart one that I've had. This is a Teflon bone folder. This one's really nice. You want to make sure as you're gluing everything down, you want to smooth everythh out and make sure it's very flat and there's no lumps or bumps or anything like that. And you always have time. This is the glue I use. This is this pH neutral PVA glue. I actually got this recommendation from a class that I took from Kitty Witty Papercraft. She has wonderful classes on making journals, and she uses this glue as well. And this is actually a really good glue. It dries clear, it adheres really well, and I'm actually needing to get some more because I'm almost out. But you can, you have some time where you can lift up the fabric and kind of smooth it out some more if you need to while you're using that glue. But again, when I'm using the glue, I use a plastic, just an old plastic brush to brush the glue on, and then make sure everything's all smooth. So this is the final journal cover. It's ready to go. I think it turned out pretty well. I was glad I got the pattern straight on here. It's straight on both sides, so I'm very happy about that. So I'll just show you a little bit more about it here. So I kept the main flowers in the front here, the big blooms here, and I really like that. And then inside, I covered the spine where I had the Tyvek paper, kind of reinforcing the spine. I also, after I folded over all the fabric, I covered the spine in a little extra fabric that I had. And you can see it's not totally, the pattern doesn't totally match here, but when you sew in the signatures, you're not even going to notice it. You're just going to see the pops of color in there, so it'll look really good. But I'm going to have about, I think, either 3 or 4 signatures. I haven't decided yet, but it'll cover all this up, and you won't even notice it. So, but it's nice because I folded over the fabric edges here, so there's nothing I had to cut off, no like jaggedy fabric or anything like that. So it's nice and folded over and glued. Oh, another tip too, while you're waiting for your glue or your gesso to dry or anything like that, it doesn't take that long, so you can get something done in your craft room. I recently labeled all my vintage ephemera, which is job that I wasn't looking forward to doing. And I finally said, all right, while I'm making the journal cover, I'm just waiting for the glue to dry, I'm just gonna go quick and make some labels and label all my stuff. So now it's all done. So that's always a good thing to do, to try to do something in the craft room that you don't really feel like doing while you're waiting for the glue to dry, and then you can go back and work on your project. So I covered this with the fabric, and then to kind of clean up the insides here, I added some, this is just scrapbook paper, and I glued that down with the same PVA glue that I used before. And I have a video from a few months back, actually it might be over a year ago, of how I organized my 12 by 12 scrapbook paper. And that has come in handy so many times, especially when I'm making journals, because I do like to cover the inside covers of my journals with scrapbook paper. But if you don't have it organized, you don't know what scrapbook paper you have. And I chose this kind of neutral craft colored, kind of subtle patterned paper. And I found this, let me show you this real quick. This is my part of my 12 by 12 scrapbook paper that I have organized by pattern backgrounds. And I was able to find that sheet of paper just by, I have this all color coordinated in rainbow order. And I have an area over here with kind of craft colored, kind of brownish tan neutrals. And I found that really cute paper in there. That was from, I think it's from Gossamer Blue or something. That was an old paper crafting company from a while back. But I easily found what I needed in here. I just wanted a subtle pattern. And since I have all my paper organized, I was able to find it. So this is definitely, I'm going to put a link to the video. This is definitely something you want to do if you have a ton of scrapbook paper and want to use it up and use it in your journals. Keep it color coordinated and you will always be able to find what you need. Okay, so back to the journal. So I glued on either side. I fit the paper to kind of cover, it fits almost the whole side of the book here. And then to kind of clean everything up, I decided to add, I wanted to add some ribbon just to kind of clean up the sides here. You're not going to see much of it because the pages are going to be in the way once you sew them in. But I was excited because I wanted to find just something super neutral. I didn't want to have a patterned ribbon or anything like that because I didn't want it to compete with the really pretty fabric here. So I had this. I had found a bunch of these at some antiquing that I did. And this is just some old anchor belting. I'm not sure what you use it for. You sew it on the inside of waistbands of pants. And I found a bunch of these that I bought when I was antiquing, and I love it because it's just kind of a real neutral color and it's nice and sturdy. And I ended up just adding one piece to each side here, and I think it really looks good. It's just kind of a real neutral just stripe, and it kind of cleans everything up with the scrapbook paper and everything. And then another way to kind of clean everything up too with the book covers is to add these little corner protectors. And you can just get these on Amazon. I have them in gold and in silver. I thought silver would look good with this particular fabric color. So all I did was add a little bit more of that glue that I showed you before, just kind of with my finger. I just kind of rubbed it on each, the front and the back corner of this. And then I popped on these little corner protectors here on all four sides of the front and back of the covers. This kind of keeps all the material from fraying in the corners, and it just gives it kind of a nice look to it as well. And some people use some pliers to smush them down a little bit. I've tried that in the past, and I feel like I get kind of dented metal when I do that because these are pretty soft. You can actually take your finger and just kind of smush it down a little bit. The glue keeps it in place too, so it's not going to pop off. So I think putting that glue is just good enough when you're doing these corners. But this just adds a nice cleaned up edge, and I think it makes everything look really good. So that's the book cover. This is ready to go. And yeah, so it was really it's getting quicker and quicker as I do it more and more. And like I said, I can't believe I'm actually covering books with fabric. I never thought I'd do anything like that. So let me know if you have any questions about, maybe any of the supplies that I used for this. And so my next step is going to be choosing the pages that I want to use for my signatures. I'm probably going to be adding some scrapbook paper. I'm not sure if I'm going to do October afternoon or I may just use some pattern paper. I'm not sure, but I might use October afternoon because this is going to kind of be a fall journal, and I have a ton of fall paper from that line. So I think I might do that to kind of anchor the signatures. And then inside for the pages, I'm going to add definitely a ton of stuff from a House of Books ephemera pack, and then some, vintage ads and things. And I might even, since this fabric kind of looks like it's more like mid to later 80s, I might kind of try to choose some things from that era. So we'll see if I have anything like that I can put in here. So we'll kind of see where it goes. I've talked about this before. I listened to the Paper Outpost podcast, and Pam, who hosts it, talks about how your journal kind of creates itself. So you can have an idea of what you want to put in your journal, and then all of a sudden it takes you in a different direction. So I love that way of looking at it, because it just makes it even more creative. So I'm not going to totally stick with what I'm deciding right now, because I know it could change. So, but thinking of a fall theme, and so we'll see where it goes with that. So next week I will show you kind of where I am with the pages, and I may or may not have sewn in the signatures already. I will, but I will show you either the pages or the final signatures that are sewn in. So thanks again for joining me today, and I'll see you in my next video.